Is Saturday, November 23rd, and you are watching You Don't Watch Sports right here on the Feo Grande YouTube network. I am Bill Smith, and I am joined as always by the man, the myth, the legend, Feo Grande himself. Oh, Murray Ellis. Oh, Murray, how was your sports week?
I am doing great, Mr. Bill Housen over here. How you doing? Love the mask. For the face, as it were. It's doing great.
All right, well, that's great because we are going to cover three topics here on You Don't Watch Sports, just to sprinkle a little information into that sports conversation, as we are your guiding light through the sea that is sports talk. Now, topic number one, Omari, the NFL still going strong. We got things to talk about. You killing the Chiefs.
Yeah, well, it happened, you know.
It was this time last week, Omari, where you declared that the Chiefs were already 10-0.
That is what I declared last week, that they were 10-0. Turns out they are 10-1. I'm still giving them that victory over the Panthers. I was just a week early. They are 10-1. They're 10-1. They lost to the Bills in a tight game, as all the games between the Bills and Chiefs are. The Bills finally getting over that hump and getting a regular season win. However, we'll see if it can happen if they meet in the playoffs. But great job, Josh Allen and the Bills. The Miami Dolphins fans, you can rest easy. Your record remains intact as the only team to go undefeated all the way through to the Super Bowl. That said, speaking of teams that are doing the best that they have in history, the 9-1 Lions are the best that they've been so far at this point in the season since 1934, Bill. 1934. This is the best Lions we've had since about as long as Fords have been cars in the Motor City. So there we go. Detroit on the rise, continuing to devour their opponents. Speaking of teams that are known for being bad, when you're a Jet all the way. I'll say it every day. I'll say it every time, especially because it rhymes. And Jets GM got fired, just like Danny Dimes, also in New York. Cut from the New York Giants. Danny Dimes, Daniel Jones. It wasn't a long career, but he definitely made his mark on the NFL. I mean, he got a nickname, and he had some great moments. We'll see what happens if he can bounce back like your Sam Darnold's, who's out here trying to prove me wrong with my Jets phrase. 8-2 Vikings right now in the NFC North. Now, Speaking of North stuff, I got one more. NFC North is crazy. I don't want to talk about two more closely fought divisions. First, I'm going to touch on the NFC West, where it has 3 5-5 teams and a 6-4 team. Literally in week 11, anybody's division.
Okay, yeah. That's very interesting.
3 5-5 teams and 1 6-4. Like, anything can happen in the NFC West.
Do you think the Cardinals are going to hold on to that?
I do not, just because I don't have faith in the Arizona Cardinals.
Do you think San Francisco is going to pull it together finally and take what most people thought was going to be their division?
If Christian McCaffrey recovers from his injury, yes. As a Panthers fan, that man can carry teams pretty well. And if his team can manage to stay in the hunt in his absence, they got a shot. I mean, they went to the Super Bowl last year. That's why he's on the Madden cover. At the same time, he's on the Madden cover, so who knows? They may not be able to come back. This may just be the curse in effect. But speaking of tightly knit divisions that we don't know who's going to win, we got the AFC North, where we got the Steelers and the Ravens going back and forth over who's running that division. The Steelers beat the Ravens last week, but then lost to the Cleveland Browns. So, it's still tightly knit up there. And meanwhile, the other team in that AFC North that should be in contention with those other guys, but just can't seem to do it, is the Cincinnati Bengals and Joe Cool, Joe Burrow, being made to look like a Joe Fool, as he has not been able to win a lot of games this season. I don't know what is with me in rhyming today. It's just what I'm doing. But it's crazy because, you usually want to blame the quarterback, right, Bill? You want to be like, this team's losing, it's the quarterback's fault. We give them all the credit when they win. But sometimes it's hard to ignore what you're seeing. Joe Burrow is the first quarterback in NFL history, for example, to throw for 300 plus yards with 3 touchdown passes and no interceptions in back-to-back games and lose both in regulation. Not even like an overtime thing. His team just outright lost despite him doing.
So are we looking at this as a failure to the defense then?
It's a failure to a lot. The man has receivers dropping the balls outside of Jamar Chase. I will give Jamar Chase just as much. That guy is on my fantasy team, and he single-handedly has won me like 3 games. But he ain't helping the Bengals win the games. I have to say it has to be a lot on defense. There have been a lot of key drops, like, but it's also happened with the Ravens as well, where, hey, here's the quarterback doing a lot. Ball, hands, I got it. Oh, no. And they drop it, and it's like, God damn it. So there's a lot of that. There's a lot going around with the Bengals, but it's not looking good. Another stat I want to point out to you, because I thought it was interesting / funny, the Browns, managed to, the Steelers beat the Ravens, like I said, a couple weeks ago. The Steelers beat the Ravens. The Bengals lost to the Steelers. I have a stat here, that also I want to point out that's just kind of silly about the Bengals' current situation and Joe Burrow. Joe Burrow has thrown 9 touchdowns versus the Ravens this season. In 2 games this season, he threw 9 touchdowns. He lost both games. The Steelers beat the Ravens last week without scoring a single touchdown. Everybody, it's crazy. But that's the wacky NFL right now. I think it's interesting, hearing these things. Maybe the Bengals can find some way to bounce back next season. But the point I tried to make, that I said people tell me I'm wrong about things. I have this fear that people talk about the Madden curse. I have this thing that I've noticed in the past decade and a half or so, where if a quarterback loses during their first Super Bowl appearance, they just never make it back there for whatever reason. Whether, TJ Watt tackles them and injures their shoulder and ruins their career, a la Cam Newton. Or, they actually weren't that good and they got carried. Who cares? It still counts as what I'm saying. Or, you're Joe Burrow. The most recent person that I said this happens with in the public standing. It had people telling me I was wrong. And we look at this season. Brock Purdy, another example I mentioned last year when I said I don't want the Steelers or the Niners to lose the Super Bowl because of this lose your first Super Bowl curse of you'll never make it back. It's only literally been less than 1 season, but we just talked about how it's not looking like the 49ers are making it back due to whatever reasons. Just saying. Not saying it's a real curse. I don't have those kind of powers, but I can be observant of what I see. But Mahomes has lost the Super Bowl. He won his first one, though. And then he started losing Super Bowls. But yeah.
All right. Let's move on to topic number 2, Omari, because the NHL is about 20 games into the season, and we need to take a look at how teams are faring. We got a good look at the teams right now, and let's run through them real quick. Actually, let's just run through some divisions here. In the Atlantic Division, you have the Toronto Maple Leafs and the Florida Panthers currently topping that division. In the Metropolitan, Hurricanes and Devils. Central Division, Jets and then Wild. And then in the Pacific, you got the Golden Knights, the Flames, and the Kings, all right there at the top, along with the Oilers. I mean, the Pacific has some middling teams all battling for first there. Early on in this stage of the season, what are you thinking?
It's hockey.
You address your Blues cap there. The Blues are currently sitting mid low in their division in the Central, 9 wins and 11 losses. Um, Not looking great. Currently 26th on the Bleacher Report's power rankings. As we mentioned that, I'll go ahead and go Jets number one, Hurricanes, Capitals, Wild, and then the
Yeah. So our champions last year were the American team, right?
Say that again. I'm sorry.
Our champions last year were the American team because it was America versus Canada in the finals, right? Because I think we were talking about it. This is how casual.
My
fans
goodness,
we
I
are.
don't. Yep, that's how casual fans we are. Correct.
NHL champions, the Florida Panthers. Yes.
You should have known that.
That's why I said it that way. Like, wow. I said it was the American team at least. But yes, the Florida Panthers, who right now are 7th in the rankings. I don't think the Jets, despite them being number one in the power rankings, my agenda continues across 2 sports. I don't care. When you're a Jet all the way. You're not winning the championship, Jets. Sorry to hear it. I have nothing against the Winnipeg Jets. I literally just want to keep using this West Side Story reference, despite the fact that I've only seen the movie once. If you're asking me, I'm gonna let personal biases go supreme for who I'm rooting for this season. Yeah, the Blues, but we see them in 26. So my realistic secondary team that I'm rooting for is them Vegas Golden Knights, because I went to a college that also has the Golden Knights as a mascot. So
All right, and as just like last year, I am going to when the Blues look like they're not going to be competitive this season, I am going to root full-heartedly for a Canadian team. So right now at 17 wins and 3 losses, topping all of the NHL, I am fully banking on Winnipeg, Manitoba, Canada, and the Jets. Let's go Jets. Let's go Canada.
now you can't see the flag, but USA.
It's a blur. It's a
Yeah,
blur.
I noticed. I was trying to.
There's
unblur
nothing.
I
It
was
doesn't
trying
even
to
look there.
unblur
It doesn't even look like there's a blurred flag back there. Oh, there's the stripes.
Uh,
There's a little bit of the stars.
why? Hand. Whatever. It's there.
All right, why are we
America.
doing this? Let's move on to topic number 3, Omari, because as you see up there on the screen, we are going to do some wrestling hot takes. This is always a good thing to get things, to get some emotions going, to get the juices riled up. I want your hard, fast opinions that you think might be a little unpopular on in the wrestling landscape. I'm going to go ahead and start with what's going on tonight
All right.
with the main event of AEW Full Gear. Jon Moxley versus Orange Cassidy for the AEW World Heavyweight Championship. And I fully believe that in this story that they are building, the most captivating thing would be for Jon Moxley to squash Orange Cassidy. And this match be 2 minutes long. 10 seconds long.
I hear you on that, and as a Orange Cassidy fan pretty much since day like 3. I'm not gonna be like I'm a day 1, so I'm on the indies and I love them. No, since about day 3 he had to grow on me, but it didn't take long. But as an Orange Cassidy fan who, I have to say I agree with you. The man needs to be squashed because you got to have this established big bad scary Jon Moxley dude.
Oh, wow. I didn't know if that was going to be a shared opinion.
Is this for the title?
This is for the title.
Yeah. It makes it hard for me to agree with you, don't get me wrong, but we're starting something here where we're supposed to be a new look, scary era for AEW. And for that era to last all of like 2 months. What are we doing? Now, granted, depending on how Moxley win or Moxley loses, if he does, it could still be the Moxley era because he did start it by going, "Yeah, I beat Bryan and took the title, but I don't give a fuck about belts." But is Orange Cassidy the face of, or and by face I mean literally not baby face, but the face of the gritty, scary AEW? Is Orange Cassidy that guy? No. Is he a tough wrestler? Yes. Again, Orange Cassidy fan. But he's not the scary guy. He's the lazy guy that can beat you.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if anybody's really predicting for Orange Cassidy to win here. I think most people are assuming that Moxley is going to win. But I don't just want a victory. I want to murder, and I want to murder quickly. A la something that I have held for a while, and I know is a very unpopular opinion,
Okay.
specifically on this channel. And I'm not defending the way we got there. I'm not defending the fact that we are there with these two competitors in the ring for a title belt. But once that has happened, the only real solution to Brock Lesnar versus Kofi Kingston is what happened in that ring. Brock Lesnar is the most believable professional wrestler that has ever existed ever. He is a mountain. He is a dominant figure who moves almost as well as Kofi Kingston moves. He cannot, Kofi Kingston should have not been put in that situation. If you want to make that argument, I'm perfectly fine with that. But in my opinion, unpopular opinions, wrestling hot takes, what happened in that match is exactly what should have happened. Just like what should happen tonight with Jon Moxley versus Orange Cassidy.
Both of those, I'm going to say, all right. So I agree, but I also disagree. So where I agree is I had an idea for a hot take that squash matches have their place in wrestling.
Yes.
When used right, you can do it. Whether it's for impact, like your Moxley or Brock, which I'll get on the Brock point in a second, but whether it's for impact or for, hey, there's the weekly squash, the Ryback, if you will, or Goldberg, where it's just that guy you're watching this week to see Goldberg eat somebody and keep the streak going. Mm-hmm. You're watching to see Jade Cargill eat somebody and keep the streak going. Yeah, those kind of things. I think squash matches have their place when used correctly, because people don't like squash matches. They all want their 5-star 30-minute classics. Big E, insert Big E quote here. But that said, Brock versus Kofi. If Kofi hadn't spent about 5 months, like from that WrestleMania to that point, showing he could be a champion and defending his title, I could understand your point of him being killed in like 20 seconds by Brock. I don't have a problem with Brock beating him because of all the reasons you listed. My thing is the instant match start F5 over for someone who you're trying to say was a serious champion. You put Kofi in a light to where he's never going to be taken seriously as that main event guy again. Because here's this other real, quote unquote, real main event guy, and Kofi couldn't last more than 3 seconds against him. Or he did, but that's only because said more than 3 seconds was getting F5'd. So you killed Kofi's potential. You're right, and I agree with you to the point. Kofi shouldn't have been put in that match, and they should have done it to somebody else. You do that to the Miz, for example.
It's also an interesting thing because revisionist history kind of puts it in the context like it's the SmackDown after WrestleMania.
Oh
Like
no, it wasn't the
you know,
SmackDown after WrestleMania.
and that's and well, and yeah, I know, but it people kind of make it seem like it was Kofi Mania, and then he got murdered by Brock.
Oh no.
And he did have that 5 month reign, and you got to remove the title, and so not everybody can have the title forever. You got to drop the title at some point. I think 5 months is a good reign for Kofi Kingston. And yeah, should he have ever been in that situation? Probably not. But when I'm like, I look at my brain sees Kofi Kingston and how he wrestles and his styling of wrestling, and then Brock Lesnar, and my brain agrees with what visually happens, that the only outcome is a bullet running at a speed train that's made out of titanium, and it just like is like, no, i'm i'm a I'm a giant train. I just eat your bullet and you're done. um that's what yeah, that's why it's a hot take.
Well, that's also
But no, I
why
agree with you that squash matches have their place, and they need to happen a little bit more, I think, in
yeah.
today's wrestling.
I just think Kofi again, not bad with Kofi losing to Brock because on paper
Mhm.
and visually, yeah, that guy loses. But when he has been your champion or something, you know what I mean? And it's
Yep.
just, oh, well, I guess no one's supposed to be. It's nothing to just make Kofi look bad. It's like, what about the motherfuckers that lost to Kofi? Can they not
Mhm.
do anything either? What the fuck? What about Daniel Bryan? He lost to Kofi at Mania in a long classic. Which tries to be claiming he's a Hall of Famer. And this is just not how I saw it, but you know what I mean. The people who don't look at online internet to be like, oh well, technically, the people who just take the story for the story are gonna be like, oh well, I guess this character was a fraud in the end. Yeah,
Mm.
put them in the tag team divisions to not even win the tag team championships for the next 4 years, because that's what happens.
Yep.
And yeah, but it happened.
Here's another hot one. The Montreal Screwjob was an unfortunate incident that should have happened, that needed to happen. When I am a huge Bret Hart fan. I am a big supporter of Bret Hart as WWF champion. But when all of the dominoes fell as they did, and Bret Hart was going to be exiting the company to WCW, and the owner of the company wanted him to drop the belt to his next guy, who was going to be Shawn Michaels. And because Shawn Michaels and Bret Hart had a couple of bad personal conversations in the locker room, Bret Hart decided that he was not going to drop the title to Shawn Michaels. You got to do something. You got to do something. You cannot allow somebody who is contracted to your competitor, who you are actively in a war with right now. You are actively in a war with. I believe they are still beating them in the ratings. I
Oh
believe
yeah, I don't
Nitro
think
is
they beat
still
him
beating
until
Raw
butts in the
in the
seats.
ratings at this point. Yeah. You cannot not allow, as much as you may trust Bret Hart when he says that on the next Raw he will drop the title to
Hmm.
whoever you want, or he will give up the title on live air. No, you need
Yeah,
for that guy to lose on his way out if you have any shot in this war. I can totally see them seeing it that way. Thus, Montreal job had to happen.
no, I can. I can respect that point.
Naysayers would say no, you should have. He agreed that he would drop it to Undertaker that night at Survivor Series. You should have just booked it as him versus the Undertaker, and then Shawn could have beat the Undertaker. Yes, that could have been what happened, but that's not what they wanted to happen.
yeah.
And they write the show. Bret Hart doesn't get to write the show. Bret Hart is not Hulk Hogan. None of us like it when Hulk Hogan does it.
Ooh, that actually plays
You know,
into
that's some Hulk Hogan shit that none of us like.
yeah. But you bring
Go
up
ahead.
because the Montreal Screwjob, unfortunate event that needed to happen. yes, you can say revisionist or, hindsight's 50-50 and all that. Well, yeah, because of the way it played out. Clearly, it played out for the better for all of us in the aftermath. But there is that whole he said, according to Brett, he was going to lose it to anybody else. He just didn't want it to be Shawn. But like you mentioned, it's their show. And they write how they want the characters to be, despite how the actors feel. Which brings up one of the points that I kind of deleted from this, because I was like, I don't know how I'm going to go into it, but I'm going to piggyback off yours by saying we need to take less, or we need to not have so much real life affecting our opinion of what happens in the ring or on the screen. Wrestling's a little too reality now. It's a little too real. We care a little too much. I think that's why people get so back and forth on their opinions of certain wrestlers and stuff, where they're like, you never push this guy on TV every week in a match. It has a banger every week or whatever. People tune in to see this guy every week, so he's clearly drawing money. But they're like, you never push him because you never put the belt on him. And they're like, fine, we'll put the belt on him. This motherfucker's had the belt too long. You guys don't push anybody that we actually care about. And, or he got stale. He shouldn't have been the champion. He should have just stayed a mid-carder. Motherfucker, he was. He was the king of the mid-card, and you told us he was main event ready. But that's just because you care about, you know how it is as a wrestling fan. You want to be a wrestling champion. So you're like, if I was a wrestler and I'm not being a champion, I would be pissed. And so you project that onto the people, and some wrestlers eventually do say things and they leave to go to another company and they're like, no, I'm proving I'm a main event superstar. But that's not everybody. And at the end of the day, even if they aren't, or even if that is how you feel, I can't fault the companies for not putting the belt on you. As much as I don't like or didn't like the Roman reign, solely because of the length of it. The length of the Roman reign, it ain't my story. It's WWE's. I just had to live through the week to week to get to the payoff that is a 3-year-long champion losing. And that's the story they wanted to tell. I can't fault them for telling it. I can't fault them because at the end of the day, the execution of him losing and the crowd pop and the, oh my God, it's finally over, elation, pulled off.
Oh, it was so powerful. So powerful.
Take the reality out of it, and you're like, oh, Cody, of course they give it to Cody Rhodes, fucking the rich getting richer, instead of some up-and-coming superstar. Or you can enjoy it for what it is, a big moment that does that.
On the opposite side of the coin, Omari, who would be somebody that never got that real good push that you always thought you were one of those people sitting there being you should be pushing blah blah blah. I love him and he doesn't get used correctly.
What I will say is, I'm not even going to say he didn't get used correctly. I'll make an argument that he kind of did, because he managed to adapt to just about everything they gave him. And that is that Baron Corbin is an awesome person, awesome wrestler, like an awesome character. I was a fan of Baron Corbin from the first time I saw him. I thought it was cool when he came out with the lone wolf gimmick and the his fucking theme when he came out.
In like NXT Black and Gold.
Yeah, in the days, like the first lone wolf Baron Corbin. Excited, came to main roster and people are like, oh, Baron Corbin, he ain't that. I'm like, what are you guys talking about? This guy's awesome. He had two of the, like, his arsenal was, kind of big man arsenal. He's not a super big man, but he kind of wrestled more like brawler because he's, I think, a Golden Gloves guy.
He's a legit fighter. No, he is a legit like Muay Thai and Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu.
Yeah, and he's a former NFL player.
Yeah.
Former Colt.
And winner. Like, there's a lot of wrestlers out there that talk about how they're a real jiu-jitsu person and they'll go to tournaments and they'll have a very heavy loss record and things like that. But Corbin is serious. He will fuck you up in real life.
and in character life. This man threw Rey Mysterio off a building. It like in
Yeah.
kayfabe to win
Yeah.
a match, he threw a man off the top of a skyscraper. Characters that do that kind of shit always is like, oh, this okay, that guy's a different kind of unhinged. But whether it was bum ass Corbin, happy Corbin, all of these other Corbins that they did to try and be like, oh, he ain't, they just gave him some cheesy gimmick that ain't gonna work. He's gonna be off TV in a couple weeks. He managed to spin them around and still stay on TV. Before the Roman reign ended, the last person to pin him in singles competition, I think, for a good 2 years of that 3-year reign was Baron fucking Corbin. Because the End of Days was a finisher that only one person kicked out of. Drew McIntyre, and I don't think that should have happened because I agreed with Baron Corbin. While you said you pushed the guy, why didn't he get the push? And I said, well, not necessarily, because he brought up a good point. At the end of the day, would you rather be the one-time champion for like 2 days or a guy who had a finisher nobody kicked out of? And he was like, I would rather never win the championship if I could hold on to that in the days never being kicked out of. At the end of the day, he got neither, which is unfortunate. But I think some more respect should be put on his name because the IWC shat on that man for years. And he didn't deserve it. He was awesome. He did everything you asked of him because his character was stupid. Like he was powerful, but he had a wisdom score of like 0. He would just go out there and poke the bear to the most point. Hey, Shield, I know you guys all hate each other right now, but you wouldn't team up against me where I'd beat your ass. You just told Goku and Vegeta to fuse. Like the Shield didn't lose as a unit for real, and you're gonna antagonize them into teaming up against you. That's a stupid thing, but the crowd loves it, and they love to see you get your ass whooped. So it makes sense. Baron Corbin was awesome. Fuck you guys.
Finishers should finish matches. I completely agree with that.
Yes, finishers need to finish matches.
Yeah, and kicking out of finishers should be more rare.
Oh, actually, yes. That the End of Days kick out goes right into that. Yes, the kicking out of finishers should be rare. It should be that one guy in your like 5-year career, if you're a big name, especially if you're a big name. Nowadays, regardless of the company, though one company clearly does it more than the other. Regardless of the company, though, people just they realize that if you kick out of the finish, it gets a good pop, and so now everybody kicks out of each other's finishers, which is like, what's a finisher then? Like that's the big moment. Like, and that also takes away from some of the kicking out of the finisher because it's like, well, the match has only been going 4 minutes. There's no realistic it can end right now. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and then there's some that are protecting their finishers pretty well. But still it's pretty sure that if you're having like a title match or a match on pay-per-view or something important, it's a pretty high likelihood that each of you are going to kick out of each other's finishers in this day and age, which kind of shifts me to my final one, is that both companies on either sides of things, the WWEs and the AEWs, need more definitive wins and losses.
Yes.
But that is also them fighting internet opinions who care about I just want definitive finishes. I don't care about what the totals are, really, in reality. I want definitive finishes for story purposes, and then they use too often DQs, run-ins of DQs.
Another big problem with the Roman
somebody interrupting singles matches to build to triple threat matches, and it also prevents people from getting losses. On the AEW side of things, they do some of those, not as much as WWE, but they do some of those. But then they also have something WWE doesn't really do, which is time limit finishes.
I'm fine with the time limit finishes because they use them rarely, and which means they're using them right.
Yes, but then to not follow up on some of the important ones is really kind of heartbreaking.
Yes, I'll give you that one.
But it is something that I wish happened more because I just want definitive wins and losses, and I don't care if somebody loses. Um, and it's wrestling. Like it doesn't matter. Uh, uh, Bailey is the best example of this. In 2023, in 2023, she was number one in the WWE for women taking pins all year long. And then what happens? In the first week of February, she wins the motherfucking Royal Rumble.
Well, I've always
And
been of the contention that winning that title once
puts you in a zone.
You're in the zone to where you realistically can win it again. Like, I don't want it to happen, but if Jinder Mahal just shows up randomly and gets another BS win for a title like he did a while back, I'm gonna be like, that's some bullshit. But at the same time, it's happened before. Should we really be surprised at this point? That's what this character do. He's opportunistic, and that kind of deal. So
Yeah.
I agree with you that depending on the character, wins and losses don't matter. At the same time, to counteract your Brock point, Kofi Kingston, sometimes the way you lose does matter. Because they took him out the main event picture forever after that. Just as a counterpoint. So sometimes it's the way you win. While the wins and losses themselves don't matter, like the amount, the way you win and lose does. I guess that's what I want to say to that point. Yeah.
Alrighty. All right. Well, put your hot takes down in the comments below. I want to know them. I want to see them. Also, let us know what NHL team you're rooting for this season. I'd like to know that. I'd love to know what the popular consensus on that front is. If you'd like to see us ramble about other things, we got all kinds of stuff on here on this channel that you can check out. On Mondays, we do a show called Mock Draft occasionally that is centered around our wrestling fantasy league, but then we also draft random things and random subjects like the Moana verse as Star Wars characters. And then then on Tuesdays we have a thing called This Guy Hasn't Seen, where we pass media back and forth that one guy has seen, one guy hasn't, and it's all about just kind of broadening that horizon, that bubble that we all have of the things we keep going back and watching and not watching new things and all of that. Just kind of trying to break that cycle. Really fun little kind of movie club that you should check out on Tuesdays. Wednesdays coming back soon. We have Whatever We Want with friend of the channel, Super Jazz.
Super Jazz.
Where they do just that, talk about whatever they want. And then, of course, on Saturdays here, right around 11-ish, you have live You Don't Watch Sports, where we cover 3 topics just to sprinkle that little bit of information into your conversation. Omari, where else can they find you on the internet?
Trying to see what Maui would be Star Wars wise. Sorry, I got very distracted when you said that Moana verse as a Star Wars thing. So I'm like, okay. Anyway, bottom line is I also have a Twitter and Twitch at Giotavi. That is GIOTAVI. Come on in, stop on by. Streaming every day 240. You know what that means. But yeah, doing good. And that's all I really gotta say. Anything else from you, Bill?
No, sir. No, sir.
All right. Well, folks, we'll talk to you later and see you next week. Have a good family food day next Thursday. Adios.